Hey everyone, this is Jason McAvoy with Jason in Portraits, and today's quick tip tutorial is going to be on darkening the background of an image. Not necessarily adding a vignette, but those images where you want to draw in a little bit more attention to the subject's face. I'm going to walk you through something I've been doing for a little bit. I see a lot of people do it, and they'll just darken the background and kind of paint away on the subject, and it leaves a little bit of a haloing effect around the outside of the subject. And the way that I do it minimizes the haloing that you get on these images. So let me just get started here and I'll walk you through it. So the first thing we're going to do is duplicate our layer. Control J to duplicate that layer. Then we're going to come up here and make a quick selection. So grab your quick selection tool. And this doesn't have to be exact. It has to be pretty close. If it's not exact, then the effect will apply to the other areas that you might not want it to. So I'll just go ahead and get her selected out here. We'll find it. So we've made a rough selection here. If you hold Alt on your PC, it will let you come in here and refine that. I'm going to grab a little bit more of her hair. And I don't want that part of the sidewalk. So I'm just holding Alt and letting go of Alt to go back and forth. Alt to remove that. Okay, so I think I've got a pretty decent selection here. Make sure, let's take that off. So yeah, we're going to do that hair a little bit differently. Let me hold Alt and get some of that in there. Try to get some of this watch if I can. Bracelet, whatever it was. Okay, so now that we have that selection, we're going to add a layer mask. There's two ways to do this. You can hold Alt and click the layer mask, and that is going to make a selection of, it's going to invert your selection. So let me just back up here. So if you just click layer mask, it is going to only apply the mask to your subject or what you selected. So if we change this to multiply, you'll see she only gets dark. So if we go back here, and by holding Alt and clicking layer mask, it basically inverts that. So now if we go to multiply, you'll see the background gets dark. Oh, let me back up here. Missed a step. So before we do that, there's a couple things you have to do. And the reason I noticed that, if you see here how blotchy this line is, that is what we don't want. So let's go back. I'm going to hit Shift F6. I'm going to add a feathering of around 40, and this is going to vary depending on the size of image that you have. So I've found that 40 works pretty good for me. So I'm going to add a feather of 40 pixels, and then I'm going to go up to Select, Modify, Expand, and I'm going to expand my selection by 10 pixels. So if you watch the selection here, you'll see that it actually grows. So what I've done here is I've made a feathering on my selection, 40 pixels, and then I've expanded my selection by 10. So that's going to get the effect off of her skin. So now, if we do Alt, Layer Mask, bring this to multiply, you can see it's a much smoother transition since we did the feathering. And that's basically the gist of what we're going to do. You're still going to get a little bit of haloing. You can see some down here, you can see some here. Turn it off and on. What I do in those situations is click on your layer mask, and since the outside is white, we want to grab our brush tool, hit D to set to default, get a white brush. I usually use an opacity of 60%, and then I just make it a large soft edge brush, and then I click over that a couple times. And to get it off her arm, hit X to switch to black. And whenever I do this, if you hold Shift, let me just bring up a new layer here and show you what I'm doing. So if you click and hold Shift, turn the opacity up, click, Shift, straight line. So holding Shift will complete from your first click to your next click. So whenever I'm doing this, what I'm doing is clicking here, holding shift, and then clicking there. And that way it just kind of follows that. The other thing you can do is click there. You can just kind of hold shift and click on through. So if you have an area that's a curve, you know, you can hold shift, click around to follow the hair. So let me just get rid of that. So we're going to go back to paint, about 50%. Get a little bit more detailed in there, smaller brush, take that out. So the other thing is I usually run this 50 to 60%, and that haloing doesn't show up nearly as bad. Work that in a little bit better. And you can see on the original, it's a little bit lighter under her arm anyway. So we're not going to go crazy spending too much time in here. I'll probably spend more time than I normally would on this. Everything else looks pretty good. I'm sure there's probably some haloing around here, but unless I turn it off and on, I don't really see it. So we can just touch up there a little bit. So the other thing that I want to do is the hair. So we want to hide it, which black hides on the layer mask. So back on the layer mask, click here, and I'm holding shift, just clicking around. Smaller brush, click, hold shift, shift, and that is it. So I'm going to walk you through that again one time without all the talking, just to let you see it again. So the first thing we do, Control J to duplicate our image, make a quick selection. Okay. Helps if I grab the right tool. Alt to refine that. Get that. Okay, Alt to take that off. Bring that down there. Okay, so Shift F6. We're going to feather that to 40. Again, that depends on the size of your image. And then we're going to go select, modify, expand. We're going to modify that selection 10 pixels. Hit OK. And then hold Alt and click on your layer mask. And then change your blend mode to multiply. And reduce that down, say 50%. So that is it. That is how you can quickly darken the background, bringing in the focus to your subject, specifically the subject's face, without having the big nasty halos around your image. This is something I do on most of the images that have a lot of deep color, or if it's just a really light background and I'm trying to darken it down just a little bit. So hopefully you guys can follow along and that makes sense. And if you have any questions, just make sure to leave me a comment. Thank you.